Hey everyone, welcome back to Vampire Folklore. So today, I want to talk about the Vampire Chronicles and the rule, well, unwritten rule, that states that a vampire cannot be created if they are below a certain age and level of maturity. A more widely accepted term for this kind of vampire is an immortal child. We do get a good idea of their history from the Twilight Saga, which I enjoyed reading, but obviously today's video is from the Vampire Chronicles universe, and I can safely say we have the prime example of what happens when a vampire is created too young, the negatives and, well, the more negatives. There's no positive outcome from such a scenario, guys, so let's just strip it back for a moment and take a look at what the actual consequences are for turning a human into a vampire. Most importantly and most notably is the fact the person or newborn in question no longer ages. Their human body dies and their vampire body will never grow old, will heal rapidly from wounds, will have super strength, super speed and super agility. The person will also more than likely develop a gift unique to themselves alone, mind reading being the most common, but there are also other more rare and unique gifts that may come over time. However, with all of that being said, there's one thing that continues to age, one part of the person that cannot be prevented from maturing, and that is, of course, the mind. The mind of a vampire continues to grow. A vampire mind operates just as a human mind does. It gains experience over time, more knowledge, more everything. It is quite obvious that the vampire child I'll be discussing today is, of course, Claudia, who really suffered in more ways than one due to being changed into a vampire so young. Here's the thing, guys, there's two on-screen portrayals of Claudia that we've now become familiar with. Most recognisable is Kirsten Dunst in the 1994 Neil Jordan movie Interview with the Vampire. We also have the more recent Bailey Bass, who played the young vampire in AMC's Interview with the Vampire TV series. Bailey Bass was playing a 14-year-old Claudia in the series, while Dunst was playing an 11-year-old Claudia. The truth is that Claudia was just 5 years old in the book. 5. Just let that register with you, that a small, weak little 5-year-old girl was turned into a vampire and condemned to the body of a child for life. Now, the obvious reason behind older actresses playing Claudia was due to the fact that it's very difficult for a 5-year-old actress to deliver the emotion needed in order to convince the viewer that what she was feeling was believable. Bailey was brilliant and so was Kirsten. However, if we go by the book, the true nature of the book, Claudia was 5. Lestat is the one that changed her, and you have to wonder, with all of his knowledge and experience, why would he be so cruel as to commit such a horrific act? Well, he wasn't thinking. He didn't consider anything but his own well-being, which was of course to keep Louis by his side. Lestat was probably the most selfish individual within the books and should have thought about the consequences of his actions, but of course, he didn't. He later admitted to Louis how wrong he was to make Claudia what she was. That she was far too young, far too inexperienced, and she didn't deserve what happened to her. She remains one of his biggest regrets, which says a lot for a vampire who bases himself on living with a carefree attitude. So let's take a deep, detailed look at why Claudia being a vampire was not just awful, but pretty much unbearable to even contemplate when we weigh everything up. This is a little girl with a 5-year-old mind. Her brain is nowhere near mature enough a level to really understand the importance of what it actually means to be a vampire. She has little 5-year-old girl hands, 5-year-old girl legs, feet, fingers, and is no more than 3.5 feet tall. She becomes a vampire and stops aging, stops growing. Her body is frozen in time. In the beginning, her mind is of that of a 5-year-old, as I mentioned a couple of moments ago. She has childish instincts, she misbehaves, she's selfish, she has tantrums like any other child her age, unless she gets what she wants. Now picture her as a vampire with an overwhelming lust for blood that even the most mature of aged vampires struggle to control. She would be completely out of control most of the time, and it's no surprise that she killed as ruthlessly as she did and angered Lestat quite frequently with her actions. Claudia turns 6. She gains a year of maturity, but she doesn't change physically. She turns 7, then 8, then 9, then 10, but doesn't change physically. She turns 15 years old, but still remains in that of a 5-year-old's body. At the age of 15, she can hold a meaningful and proper conversation while having a good understanding of the world. She begins to notice other girls of 15 years and wonders why they are growing into women when she does not. More years pass and Claudia is a mentally fully grown woman, let's say 25 years old, a wealth of experience, a fantastic knowledge of her surroundings and extremely skilled on the piano, yet she remains after 20 years in the same small, weak 5-year-old child's body, which is now beginning to feel more like a prison. She may be a vampire, but due to her size, she is still weak and would not even have the ability to create a new vampire, as the blood loss would most likely kill her. More years pass as Claudia's resentment towards Louis and Lestat grows stronger, and she finally lashes out over the life she has been condemned to live. Furious at Lestat for being her maker, her anger at Louis cloaked with heartache over how he could be part of such an act. So after 60 years in the body of a 5-year-old, guys, 60 long years, every day for Claudia is a day trapped in a prison. She is desperate to own a grown woman's body, but at the same time realizes that it will never be a possibility. Claudia's existence contradicts a rule enforced by many, if not all, vampires in existence: never make a vampire whose body has not matured into that of an adult. This was heavily enforced by the vampires of the Théâtre des Vampires, who immediately marked Claudia for death the moment she stepped foot into the theatre along with Louis. Despite being so old, Claudia's existence was considered an abomination, to be fair, and as much as I disliked Santiago, I really disliked him, he was right. Claudia was living a literal nightmare. She was the actual, physical, living proof of why the rules stood in place. She also knew that she couldn't survive without a carer, something else that angered her greatly. So desperate to have the body of a woman of an appropriate age, Claudia would go to any lengths possible for a successful outcome. After her encounter with Armand and knowing that he wanted Louis for himself, she willingly agreed to be his guinea pig in what can only be described as an absolute manic experiment that should have stayed theoretical. Armand suggested removing Claudia's head and placing it onto the body of a vampire woman in order for her to finally have the body she dreamed of for decades. It's my personal belief that Armand knew this would never work, but convinced her it would in order to remove her from Louis' life as a debt owed to him or through death. The experiment didn't work, however, and Lestat's testament against Claudia after his surprise arrival at his old theatre all but condemned her to death. She was turned to ash by the sun's rays, bringing an end to what can only be described as a life of mental torment and torture. With Claudia's death came another death, that of Louis' humanity. He never truly got over her and still bears the scars of her loss, even in recent times. As you can see, everyone, the reasons for why it is forbidden to make vampires as young as Claudia are not only clear, but they are also quite just. She should have never been created by Lestat all those years ago. He didn't grant her the dark gift of immortality, he condemned her to a mental prison inside a child's body, destined to never age. Despite her main role being in that of Interview with the Vampire, Claudia's character is tragic. Her life was tragic, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how Bailey Bass betrays her in season 2 of AMC's Interview with the Vampire series. That's all I have for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to share this video, give it a like if you enjoyed it, and hit that subscribe button if you want to join the Vampire Folklore family. I'll see you all very soon.